Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of DGS. Gina Lestrade has finally given us a testimony for us to cross-examine, and we are going to start going into that now. The incident the girl witnessed. So you're saying you slipped into the carriage before it set out? Well, think about it. Wouldn't it be weird if I paid to go pickpocketing? He has a point. The defense attorney doesn't pay for the right to defend anyone. If the defense could please refrain from agreeing with the pickpocket's twisted logic. In any case, this clears up the mystery of the passenger fare. 4 passengers paid 5 pence apiece, bringing the driver's earnings to 20 pence. The 5th passenger didn't pay the fare. That's all it means. The driver always eats dinner at the pub before taking the last carriage out. It's the perfect opportunity to slip into the carriage. Pretty easy, eh? However, in the underseat compartment you claim to have hidden in, it have been filled with tools for carriage maintenance. Yeah, it was full of odds and ends like brushes and buckets and stuff. I took all that rubbish out and hid it in the corner like always. The other passengers hardly paid any mind at all. Was there even space to do that? And yet when the police received word of the incident and rushed to the scene of the crime, the compartment had the driver's tools in it. I don't know much about that. I cleared up the driver's rubbish and hid myself, that's all. I see. Please continue with your testimony. You didn't have much luck at work? What do you mean? Usually at some point the wind stops on the omnibus. But one moment, please. What do you mean, the wind stops? Oh, that's what we call it. It means all the passengers get out and the carriages becomes empty. So when the wind stops, that's your chance to come out of hiding, right? That's right, but that night, this old man sat on that seat from the very start. And on top of that, he was sound asleep. I was completely trapped in there. So then, the whole time until the incident occurred, you were hiding in the compartment under the seat, correct? Yeah, isn't that right, old man? It certainly is. Even someone like me would wake up if the cushion were to be lifted up and sent me toppling from my seat. It would have been impossible for this girl, Gina-san, to be the killer. Who did it? So then, you couldn't see what was going on inside the carriage? That's right. So normally I lift up the cushion with the top of my head. I'd steal a peek at my prey through that gap. Your prey? The cushion on the seat I hide in is harder than the ones across from it. So it's much more common for it to be left empty. But that night of all nights, that old man decided to sit there the whole time. And that prevented you from being able to look out into the carriage. Is that what you're saying? Truth is, I don't much like dark places. Makes me feel trapped. But I wanted to avoid being found. I had no choice but to hide there. In that case, you should just quit being a pickpocket. That's what I think anyway. But looking at the way she dressed, I'm sure she's got a reason. Anyway, I was scared, but I had no choice but to be quiet. So that loud noise must have been the sound of someone collapsing, right? It was something like that, I think. I don't really remember, though. Anyway, it startled me. and you screamed before you could stop yourself? That's when the cushion over my head suddenly grew light. That was when Megalodon-san tried to help the fallen victim, right? Or perhaps he left his seat to stab the victim who was sitting across from him. That's also possible. Did you not see what occurred at that time, witness? I saw... When I pushed up the cushion and peeked through the crack, the old man was helping the one who collapsed back into the seat across the way. That matches Mangeldal-sama's testimony. That's when the old man suddenly turned around. So I instinctively tried to pull my head back in, but... So when Mangeldal-san found you, he made you come out of your hiding place, right? I was scared. He'd made me sit in the seat across from him. So the victim, Mr. Mortar, was sitting beside you, correct? Yeah. There was a knife stuck in him, and he was bleeding. And when the carriage would sway or bump, or hit a bump, the body's head would lean towards me. Oh, how terrifying. At that time, I got blood on both my hands, and began to feel faint. Blood on both hands. That must have been what the two on the upper deck saw. Then you talked to Mangeldal-san. He asked me a lot of questions. Like my name and why I was hiding there. And when I heard a man's voice coming from somewhere above my head, that's when I heard... Excuse me. I can't read today. That's when I heard a man's voice coming from somewhere above my head. That must have been the two passengers in the upper deck seats. I didn't want them to see my face, so I didn't look up. Then when the carriage stopped, the old man pointed at the seat and said, "Quickly, hide in here. I'll help you escape." Until just a moment ago, the 6 jurors had agreed on not guilty. Just for the briefest of moments, though. But there can be no doubt that we can sway their hearts. So, if we were able to find a decisive clue in this testimony, I'm certain we could get a not guilty verdict for real this time. Yes, I'm sure you're right. But I wonder why. Why I feel like something is tugging at my heart. Alright, before we continue and go back, I'm being asked to examine the scabbard. Or just the knife. This is the knife's scabbard. Is something wrong, Naruhodo-sama? No, I'm just not all that fond of blades. Oh. As soon as I lower the volume. That's an awfully curious statement from someone with the king of all blades tied to his hip. That's not a blade, it's a Sogi spirit. Okay. Anyway, shall we try removing it? The weapon scabbard, I mean. Hello, phone. I did not want you to go off that point. M, huh? It's certainly Mangeldal-san's initial. What a beautiful gold filigree. I'm sure it must have been quite expensive. Ah, what is it? About this M. Doesn't it look like a W if you turn it upside down? Yeah, this is it. This is exactly the big turnabout we've been waiting for. W, you say? That must be it. I'm not really sure what you're trying to get at, but I'm fairly sure this is meant to be an M. Ooh, that dream sure died quickly. Blood. Ooh, there's some stuff on it that looks an awful lot like blood. There can be no doubt that this is the victim's blood. Ooh, the British blood sure looks like Japanese blood, doesn't it? Of course it does. We only arrived in London this morning after all. I still haven't picked out where the differences are. I can certainly understand that. Okay! Is this telling me to press on the third statement? It's telling me, I think, to press on the third statement here. So then, you couldn't see what was going on inside the carriage. That's right. Normally I lift up the cushions with the top of my head, and steal a peek at my prey through that gap. Your prey? The cushion on the seat I hide in is harder than the ones across from it, so it's much more common for it to be left empty. But that night of all nights, that old man decided to sit there the whole time. And that prevented you from being able to look out in the carriage. Is that what you're saying? Truth is, I don't much like dark places. Makes me feel trapped. Mango doll? He didn't do anything the first time I pressed on this. Is everything alright, Mango doll-san? Oh, pardon me. What can I do for you, Mr. Attorney? Did you have a thought about Gina-san's testimony just now? You look like you were thinking about something. It's just hearing her speak. I realized just how terrified she must have felt, and I was filled with pity. Actually, I can remember such a feeling myself. When I was a child, I was frightened of the dark as well. Well, I'm sure most people have such memories. Actually, I'm still scared of it. Oh! At such times, I would strain my ears for what my eyes could not detect, and attempt to flee from any sound I heard. What, Mango doll? That's true. I did that as well, I think. I might have been straining my ears at that time. Does that mean you heard something? A sound you found strange? I love how Mango doll's just kind of standing there smiling the whole time, and I'm like, God damn it, you are like egging the witness here. No, not really. I think all I could hear was this old man snoring. Oh my, how slovenly I was in front of this charming little lady. How disappointing. If only she had heard an unusual sound of some sort, it would have been a useful clue. Yeah, it sure would have. What about Gina-san's statement just now? It was meaningless, it was extremely important. It's important. Your Honor, I feel that Gina-san's statement just now was extremely important. Important? But all this witness said was that she didn't hear anything and nothing more. That's precisely what may be so important. Yes, we can't be sure. I suppose I just don't understand the way black-clad Oriental attorneys think. Now then, witness, Gina Lestrade, append your previous statement to your testimony. Append? What does that mean? Don't think you can get me all confused by using difficult words. Oh, jeez. So I was straining my ears the whole time, but all I could hear was snoring. So the whole time you were riding in the carriage, you were listening closely? Maybe not the whole time. Eh? When I first hid in that compartment, there was no one else in the carriage. But I did lift up the cushion a little and looked around the carriage. When I saw this old man boarding alone, I pulled my head back in. And then Mango doll-san sat on your head. That's right. What a mean old man. From that point on, I started listening closely. If I heard the old man leave the carriage, I was planning to come out right away. But even though the carriage stopped several times, I never heard the door open. So, the only thing I could hear was the old man snoring. I wonder, Gina-san's statement just now. There was no problem, there's a contradiction. There's a contradiction? Gina-san, your testimony just now contained a huge contradiction. Huh? Contradiction, you say? Precisely. It seems that even an Oriental exchange student is capable of seeing that much. Prosecutor Von Zieks, he noticed too? Defense. Present either evidence or a profile. Yes, Your Honor. Something that indicates the contradiction you've noticed. That's right. Gina-san was hiding inside the omnibus, and she didn't hear anything aside from Mango-doll snoring, according to her. But there's something else she should have heard. That's present evidence, present profile, forget it. We're going to present a person. Now then, I shall present the defense's thoughts on the matter. About what Gina-san heard on the omnibus that night. It's strange for her not to have heard a sound related to this person. Mortar-san. The thrice-baked mortar. Yes, the sound she should have heard was the sound of the victim boarding the omnibus. Order! Order! Defense, what is the meaning of this? Miss Lestrade, please confirm one thing for me. You were the very first one to enter the carriage, correct? Well, I mean, while the driver was having dinner in the pub, I had already climbed in. And then, the next person to board the carriage was Mango-doll-san, right? Yes, when I board, there was no one else inside the carriage. At least, no one visible. And at that time, you boarded alone, didn't you? That's right. I'm always alone when I ride the omnibus. I also peeked out from under the cushion and this old man really was by himself. Then, after that, it seems that the carriage made a few other stops. But you never heard the door open. Am I still on track so far? Yeah. Excuse me. I was paying close attention the whole time, so there's no way I would have missed it if the door had opened. Then just when? And how did the victim board the carriage? Oh. After the victim passed away, he collapsed inside the carriage. In other words, there's a contradiction in Gina-san's testimony. Indeed, there is a critical contradiction in his pickpocket's testimony. Lord Von Zieks. I was right. The prosecutor also noticed Gina-san's contradiction. It seems I owe the defense a debt of gratitude. What do you mean? You see, this makes it clear. This witness and her testimony, none of it can be trusted in the slightest. It's not but convenient lies.
He's right.
For the victims never have boarded the carriage.
There's just no way.
She's a pickpocket, for starters.
Oh, hi, Granny. She's like, not even saying anything. What? She didn't even say anything.
She may be a pickpocket, but I don't plan to let that color my view on the matter. However, I cannot abide by lies.
Precisely.
Mr. Head Juror.
I don't plan to let the fact that she's a pickpocket colour my view on the matter. But I cannot abide by lies.
Welp? Naruhodo-sama, that makes 5 jurors registering a decision of guilty. It seems that this kind-hearted Oriental has generously saved me quite a bit of trouble. Well, I'm glad you're drinking it before you're breaking that thing. Delightful. Gah! Ah! What the devil? What the bloody devil? Just whose sake do you think you're standing there for, you chink shyster?
I love watching the shit hit the fan for someone else.
Juror 3! Number 2 is the very last one. Naruhodo-sama, if we don't do something, I must present some new possibility, and now. Otherwise, the verdict really will be handed down this time.
I honestly wanted to believe in Mr. Meganer, the Star of London. But it's a servant's duty to accept the facts at this harsh close of the century. That's what I feel compelled to say.
Naruhodo, it's true that the testimony just now contained a serious contradiction. However, if that testimony turned out to be true, that might open up a whole new world of possibilities. What? Mr. Attorney.
Whatever do you mean?
Defense, the court will not permit unreasonable stalling. We would like to hear your thoughts immediately. That evening, when the defendant boarded the carriage, he didn't see the victim there. After that, this witness claims to never once have heard the carriage door open. However, the fact remains that the victim's body was found on the floor of the carriage. If you intend to claim that this pickpocket girl's testimony is true, just how do you propose that the victim appeared in the carriage? Wondering eyes as we answer this. The victim appeared inside the carriage. The only possibility I can think of is he boarded even earlier than these two. He boarded through some other opening besides the door. He was loaded on after his death. It will be the second option, because there was a skylight. Even though I don't think any of this is right. So long as we accept that the door never opened, then the victim must have boarded through some other opening besides the door. That's the only thing we can conclude. I wonder what desperate claims you would attempt to make. Take a good look at that omnibus. On one side is equipped with windows, and the other side is equipped with a door. The windows do not open. The windows do not open. In other words, there's no other opening besides the door. The defense can think of one possibility. What? Besides the door, there is just one other. One other place that the victim could have used to appear in the carriage. Very well. In that case, the court would like the defense to point it out. On the omnibus that acted as the scene of the crime, just how did the victim manage to make his way inside? Well, gee, I don't know, the skylight? Even though I still don't think that's it. This trial is really... Naturally, that would be the skylight. The skylight, you say? That's such a ludicrous thought that I find myself at a loss for words. That skylight is large enough that it would have been possible for him to enter through it. That's not what I was getting at. Do you have even one basis for that laughable suggestion? Inside that omnibus, Mangadal-san and Gina-san heard a loud noise like a person collapsing. Then naturally, that was simply the sound of the victim collapsing after having been stabbed with a knife. However, if he'd only fallen from his seat to the floor, it wouldn't have made such a loud sound. And sound loud enough that it caused Gina-san to instinctively scream. You don't mean... Isn't it possible that that's when the victim appeared in the carriage through the skylight? No, rather than saying he appeared, it might be more accurate to say that he fell. Perhaps that's what I should say. The victim fell through the skylight, you say? That's ridiculous. Unthinkable. What makes you so sure of that? If the victim really fell through the skylight, naturally, the passengers on the upper deck would have witnessed it. However, they did not mention a single word about such an event in their testimony. That's true, but... Hold it! May I say something? Mangodal-san. While it's true that the pair from earlier who had been seated on the upper deck didn't testify that the victim fell through the skylight. But if you ask me, it's not that they didn't testify about it. Yes. It was that they couldn't testify about it. Eh? It seems that those two gentlemen may have had some reason that they couldn't speak frankly. Don't you agree, ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
So, then, you can't mean...
Those two, seated on the upper deck.
Or the ones who...
Yeah!
Uh-oh. I'm gonna stop here and we'll continue this on in the next video because we are kind of out of time now. But this is bad. Now, I don't even know where this trial is even going anymore, but holy shit, what is happening? We'll just continue on and see what their protests in the next video. Yes. Oh my god, this trial. I need a new one. I think I need to get a new one because this is ridiculous. Like, why? Why are you doing this?
I love watching the shit hit the fan for someone else. Not me, though. I'm fucking awesome. I'm Juror 3 and I'm a bit of a wanker.
Ah! No. Oh my god, I sound like a cat.
The fifth passenger didn't pay the fare. That's all it means. The driver always eats dinner at the pub before taking the last carriage out. It's the perfect opportunity to slip into the carriage. Pretty easy, eh? However, in the underseat compartment you claim to have hidden in, would have been filled with tools for carriage maintenance. Yeah, it was full of odds and ends like brushes and buckets and... You didn't have much luck at work? What do you mean? Usually at some point the wind stops on the omnibus. But one moment, please. What do you mean, the wind stops? Oh, that's what we call it. It means all the passengers get out and the carriages becomes empty. But when the wind stops, that's your chance to come out of hiding, right? That's right, but that night... Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of DGS. Gina Lestrade has finally given us a testimony for us to cross-examine, and we are going to start going into that now. The incident the girl witnessed. So you're saying you slipped into the carriage before it set out? Well, think about it. Wouldn't it be weird if I paid to go pickpocketing? He has a point. The defense attorney doesn't pay for the right to defend anyone. If the defense could please refrain from agreeing with the pickpocket's twisted logic. In any case, this clears up the mystery of the passenger fare. 4 passengers paid 5 pence apiece, bringing the driver's earnings to 20 pence. Stuff. I took all that rubbish out and hid it in the corner like always. The other passengers hardly paid any mind at all. Was there even space to do that? And yet when the police received word of the incident and rushed to the scene of the crime, the compartment had the driver's tools in it. I don't know much about that. I cleared up the driver's rubbish and hid myself, that's all. I see. Please continue with your testimony.